Now it comes down to some of my personal questions regarding OOD and their services. One of the questions that I often ask myself, and I often ask the OOD counselors, is how early is too early? Services can be provided as early as 14 years old. The earlier that a student is referred, from what I hear, is the better. The earlier that they kind of get that plan started, they build that rapport, they start working with the agency to, like I said, build and develop that plan, the better. Right now, one of the struggles that I know that we're facing in terms of OOD and adult linkages with agencies is that we have COVID-19 flying all over the place. Last year, OOD during the summer still participated in a summer youth work experience like what I was talking about earlier, although it wasn't what it typically looked like. It was more of a hybrid of kind of online and in person, very typical to what we're seeing in the schools right now. So then the age-old question becomes, how do you get families to buy into linking with adult services early? I have found that the more that we are backwards planning, the better for our families and our students. It doesn't necessarily always work. For example, one of the school districts that I work in is very rural and there's not much industry around and surrounding. So for parents and students to buy in, it becomes a little bit more difficult because they're really unsure and they don't know how that's going to work for them within their specific community. And the age-old thing, too, is that when we start talking about transition services, the parents say, but my kid's only 14 years old. So I think that in all, that's one of the biggest barriers that I'm coming across when it comes to building these linkages with agencies. Number 2 was how intakes are being handled. Just kind of working with people through the course of this year, asking questions. I haven't had a ton of referrals this year. Typically, you'll have a bit more referrals towards the beginning of the year, and unfortunately, I just haven't been able to get my families to buy into utilizing adult services and making that plan for the future. So I have been talking a lot with different OOD counselors as well as different transition coordinators within our county. Right now, OOD is doing all of their intakes virtually or over the phone. They are not meeting in person with any individuals for a period of time, just like some school individuals as well. So typically, in a typical year, I would help with the scheduling of OOD intakes, and we would do those at the school. Now, OOD counselors are the responsible ones to call families and schedule that setup, which then I think also aids in that miscommunication as to like, hey, who's contacting me and why are they contacting me? Although families have already filled out all of the appropriate paperwork for the referral process. Once an intake is scheduled, again, it's over the phone. It's about, a half hour, which is a long time for families over the phone. And then at that point, if there's additional information that the OOD counselor needs in order to deem eligibility, they will reach out to the appropriate parties, get consents, all of that, and then they will let that individual know as soon as they have found whether or not they have been found eligible for services. Once that takes place, they'll meet together, typically with a transition coordinator if available, and kind of discuss what services they will be providing for that student.